Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
One, two. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't shine forever.
Welcome to the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. If you'd like to call in or send your thoughts at Bob Sullivan Show on Twitter, call in at 585-633-7487. Here in hour number one, I have former Major League pitcher and current country music star on the rise, Brett Myers. Brett, how you doing tonight?
How's it going?
It's going well. So you're in the studio tonight.
Yes, sir.
And, what is a typical day/night like in the studio with Brett Myers?
Oh, it's all about having fun, man. If I wasn't doing it, I wouldn't do it unless I had fun with it. It's kind of like playing the game of baseball and stuff like that. Just, hanging out with the buddies and having a few beers and stuff like that and doing the music thing, man. Just trying to have a good time, trying to live life and put out some music that people will enjoy.
What's the most difficult part of writing? When you're putting together a song, is it, adjusting lyrics, making the lyrics work, or when you're in the studio trying to stay sober enough to make the lyrics work and make the sound good?
No, I mean, honestly, it really comes easy, man. You just come up with a concept of something that you think people can relate to, and you go from that. You go from there. I mean, it's we pretty much have the idea of what we want to do when we come into the studio, and we actually write the song during the week, and then we come and sing it. We sing on it, do the mic stuff and the stuff. We do all the instrument stuff during the week, and we come in on the weekend and sing it. And I honestly can tell you that that's probably the hardest part for me is getting in front of a mic and singing, because I can't even stand hearing my voice on a voicemail. So I don't leave voicemails to anybody. So I guess that's the hardest part for me, is thinking that it sounds cool and stuff. And, I'm working with a professional producer and stuff like that has faith in me and everything. And I have a good time doing it. And it's just like hanging out, just having a good time, it's hanging with the boys, and getting out of the house and trying to do some stuff that makes me happy. And if it doesn't make other people happy, I kind of really don't care at that point,
Have you ever written a song about, a lot of people, things they're passionate about? Some people write things that they passionately hate, passionately love. Have you written anything about anything you passionately hate? And is that easier than writing about something you passionately love to do?
Well, all my songs really I try to be upbeat with. I don't try to. I like to have a good time. I don't like anything that brings me down. I like to have a good time. I like to always, have a good time. And no, I don't necessarily write anything about hatred or nothing, because when I listen to songs about hatred and stuff like that, it's usually about a girl and stuff like that. And I really would like to, promote the fact that I like to be fun and party song type thing, and people can laugh to, have a good time to. I'm not the Debbie Downer type guy that likes to write his music about sad stuff. And I just think that's not the way I like to express myself. I like to express myself as having fun and doing cool stuff, that's something that my kids can like and something that we can kind of dance to or high five to or say stuff like a comedian says. What makes him funny is the stuff that he says that's the truth, people can relate to. So that's the style of music that I like to write.
When you're, is there any former teammate or coach or anything like that you like to have a good time in the studio? Have you ever had a former teammate or coach or anything like that you've had in the studio, or would you bring in somebody that you played with that you think would be a good time to hang out with in the studio?
Well, I don't. I would bring all my teammates in to have a good time with in the studio. We did that in the clubhouse for years, but I don't necessarily think that they have my friends and teammates have the same passion that I do for the music. This is some of the stuff that I like to do. They might not want to come in and do that type of stuff. Like I feel like that, I've always loved music and I've always wanted to do music. And, it was something that I thought that I should try, before I, got too caught up in other things. I just wanted to give this a shot. And so far, got 17 songs out and I'm having so much fun doing it. And I think that's where it really comes down to. It's just having the fun aspect about it. And, it's like playing baseball and stuff, man. Once it stops being fun, you got to go home, or if you blow out, or if you're not capable of getting it done anymore, it's time to go home. But, with this, I feel like that it's something else for me to do. I need to find something to do with my time now that I'm retired, and I'm having so much fun doing this. And, I don't know what else to say about it, but the fact that I'm just having a great time doing it, and I'm hoping that people enjoy the same stuff that I enjoy and they like my music.
During your playing career, what was on your off days and having to occupy your mind in the clubhouse, what was it music that you went to, or what did you do to occupy those days when you had to be at the ballpark for 8 hours and you weren't going to pitch?
Right. Well, I started playing guitar when I got to the big leagues, and the video coordinator for the Philadelphia Phillies at the time was Kevin Camasholi, and he used to be a guitar teacher and everything like that, and plays guitar and all this stuff. And I would always hang out with him in the video room, and we would talk about guitar stuff, and he would teach me some stuff and everything. So I've always been a guy, once I sink my teeth into it, I want to be better and better and better at it. I have like off-season stuff that I would mess around with, say bowling or something like that, or golf. I would try to kick my tail to try to be better at that. But the music thing is always been there. I've always wanted to be able to write my own song. I could always sing other people's songs, and I always read into the words to try to figure out exactly what they were saying and what the song was about. And I wanted to write my own stuff. And I never really, enjoyed playing the guitar with other people's music. I didn't want to play their stuff. I wanted to play my own stuff, and I struggled with that. And then I got up with some buddies that, or one of my buddies that's in a band, that my producer now, and he was in a band, Puddle of Mud and everything like that, and Burn Season and Society Red. And I got up with him, and he's producing music now, and he's done some, pretty big names like Saliva and stuff like that. So I was like, man, let's see what we go with this. And, so the music thing's always been there in my spare time, but something that I've always wanted to try to conquer. And I thought it would be very cool to put an album out just to say I did it at first, and then it came out good, and now it's kind of bleeding over, and I still want to do it, and still people are tending to like it, so I keep wanting to do it. And the other reason why I do it is because my kids, my grandkids, the kids that they're going to have down the road is always going to be able to hear my voice. I think that's like the coolest thing of all, and I think that's one of the main things why I want to keep doing it and everything, that they'll always be able to hear the music that I've created.
Everybody has like a favorite baseball movie, but there's a lot of stinkers out there as far as baseball movies go.
Major League One, done.
Well, my question is, what's the movie about a band or a musician that really is one that when you see it's on TV, you stop and watch, or is there one?
Well, there really isn't a movie that I sit down and actually watch, but I like watching behind the music and stuff like that. You can, watch that stuff on YouTube or on VH1, older stuff. And I'm infatuated with Leonard Skinner. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and that's where they're from. And I actually know some of the band members and everything like that. But I'm infatuated with that band. I grew up on that band. My dad always played them, and I am absolutely. A lot of my music is inspired from them. I mean, Ronnie Van Zant is one of the greatest songwriters of all time, and he passed away too early, and I think he could have done way better things than he did. And just in a short period of time, look how much success that they had. And, that's my favorite band. And they're the reason why I wanted to start playing music. Them and AC/DC. I mean, AC/DC, I wanted to play their stuff because it was simplified. It was simplified rock that was just cool as hell, and it's their sound. And I started playing guitar. I learned that stuff, and I realized that the Leonard Skinner stuff was way too hard to play. And I think that's why I'm really infatuated with them, because their story and everything like that of how they started and everything, and how it all ended really, really is disappointing. But one of my favorite bands of all time.
Onto the baseball end of things. They just elected Mike Piazza and Ken Griffey Jr. to the Hall of Fame. 3 people didn't vote for Ken Griffey Jr. One, how much do you pay attention to Hall of Fame voting? And 2, how much do you get worked up about it at all when former players aren't getting votes?
Not really. I mean, I don't really pay too much attention into it. Usually the guys that get voted in well deserve it. I mean, in my opinion, they all well deserve it with the stuff that they've done in their career. I mean, goodness gracious, I used to watch Ken Griffey Jr. as a kid. I used to be in the yard trying to hit like him, and stuff like that. And Mike Piazza and one of the greatest hitting catchers of all time. Yeah, they deserve to be in there. And I actually got a chance to play against those guys, and I think that it's really cool that those guys get in, because I was like, I got those guys out at one time. I'm still like a little kid, I still like a little kid, when you're growing up, like, oh my God, I just saw Ken Griffey Jr. I just met Ken Griffey Jr. or I just met Mike Piazza, whatever. I actually got to play against those guys, and at the time when I was playing, I didn't realize that, but now that I'm not playing, I can sit back and go, man, I actually got those guys out a couple of times. I've struck those guys out a couple of times. And then, I realized that I've played against some Hall of Famers and I've met some great Hall of Famers too. And it's a great honor. I'm so blessed to be where I was. And I had fun doing that too, but now, when you get finished, at the time, you don't want to show them any kind of like you're friends with them or nothing, because you have to compete against them. You don't want to give them that mental edge, I guess. That's the way I thought about it. And, but now it's just, I think the guys that they put in there deserve it. I couldn't tell you that some of the guys that aren't in there, I don't keep up with it too much, but, I think they all deserve it.
Was there ever a pitching match, like somebody that you were matched up against, like a Roger Clemens on the other side, or where you're like, oh my God, I'm in a pitching duel with Roger Clemens, and you're like, oh, like you get extra juice for that one. Who was Roger Clemens?
Yes, actually it was. It was actually a lot of guys, but Roger Clemens being one of my childhood idols. I grew up watching him and Nolan Ryan. Those were my two guys that I enjoyed watching. And, I even took it. Clemens was still pitching, and I pitched against him. And when he changed his mechanics, I changed mine a little bit and started going back and forth, like watching him do his thing, and then I would do it. Even when I was in the big leagues, like that's how much of an influence he had on me. And when I got to meet him and everything, and he actually talked to me and stuff, I was like, wow, like unbelievable. That's just crazy, and I felt like every guy that I met, when I first met Roger Clemens, I was in Double-A, and I felt like he was 6'10". I'm 6'4", and I felt like he was 6'10". I felt like he was the largest human I've ever seen in my life, just because that's where I put him. I put him that high and that big on my level. And then after, when I played in Houston and got to see him a lot, I realized that he was just a normal dude like the rest of us, and wasn't this great, like, icon. He still was to me, don't get me wrong, still is, but I just didn't see him as big as I saw him when I first met him. At 20 years old, I'm going, oh my goodness gracious, this is Roger effing Clemens. Like I don't even know what to say or what to do. And I remember the first thing he told me, he's like, before you pitch, you gotta get some carbs in you, some pasta, and if pasta ain't around, you need to get a Whopper with cheese or something from Burger King. And I was like, yeah, right. He goes, I'm serious. And then from when I was in Double-A, I went back, and for every single time I pitched, I ate a Whopper with cheese. That's how much when this guy told me something, I was going to do it. It's kind of like music. If a Leonard Skinner guy told me to do something with my music or whatever, guess what? I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to listen to every word you say.
Did anybody, when you're younger, coming up through the bigs, you obviously listen more and you're more in awe, I would assume, of these big leaguers that you're like, oh, that's a future Hall of Famer. That's a future Hall of Famer. And then do you once you get into the big leagues, do you kind of lose that where, that childlike awe of these people? And then now you appreciate it more.
Honestly, I only had a few guys that I was really in awe of. And those were the guys that I were absolutely in awe of. And the rest of them, I didn't really care. I was trying to beat them because they were trying to beat me, I remember my first big league start was against Sammy Sosa, and I didn't give a crap who Sammy Sosa was when I was playing, But afterwards, I was like, oh, my God, I just played against Sammy Sosa. You got to be kidding me, man. Like one of those things. But that's afterwards. Like when I'm out there playing and pitching and stuff like that, man, I didn't give a crap who stepped in there. It didn't matter to me. I could give two craps, whatever, who was stepping in there. I just knew I had a job to get them out. And I knew I had a job to pitch for the team and to try to win a game for the team.
You guys are around the media pretty much for, 162 game season. And then you get to the playoffs, a few more. There's some people that genuinely hate the media, but do you think it's just more you just get tired of them throughout the season? And do you think that's it? Or playing in Philly and everything, media is like huge there. And I was coming from a small town and didn't have a lot of that stuff growing up and everything, but every little thing that you did and every pitch that you made, they remembered and they brought it up. And it was just kind of like, hey man, I pitched like crap. Who cares? Leave me alone. All right. I'm done. Just leave me alone. That's all I wanted to tell them is that I didn't do my job. Who cares? I'll go get them next time. I gave everything I had out there. I did everything I could do. I worked my tail off before the start. It just didn't work out for me. I didn't have my best stuff that day or blah, 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 whatever it is. You try to say all the right things because they'll end up turning it around on you and making it look like you said something that you really didn't say. So when looking back, the thing that the media, I don't understand, I joke about it from time to time, but when these media members, like if a player doesn't perform, it's like they take it personally that a player didn't perform. How big of a joke do you think it is when the media or fans just take it? I mean, the fans, it's a little different, but when media members just take it so personally that a player. You
gotta understand. These guys are making millions of dollars to play the game of baseball. Mm-hmm. They're expected to have a good day every time. That's the way the fans and the media think, that you have to have a good day every time because you're making $10 million a year. You have to have a good day. You're supposed to be on your best every single time you go out there. And let's if that was the case, then every player that's ever played the game would be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Every single player would be in the Hall of Fame. But in all honesty, I kick my own tail harder than the media does because I'm more pissed that I don't play well than they are and the fans are. Don't they think that I think that's what they miss. That's what the media and that's what the fans miss. Like I genuinely cared if I got my ass kicked. Like I could not stand it. I was beating myself up more than they were beating me up. And I was more mad after games than anything. Now, not every player thinks that way, but I was just always in a bad mood. I was always in a bad mood. Whether it been good start, bad start, it didn't matter. I just wanted to stay, I had a job to do. I just wanted to go do it, and I just wanted to be left alone. That's the way I've always been. I just kind of want to be, left alone when it comes to, playing the game of baseball because everybody's critical about everything that you do. Whether it be my music, whether it be my baseball stuff. People didn't like me as a player. People don't like me as a musician. That's fine. People that like me as a player think my music's good. I mean, that's just the way it is, And I feel like the media runs everything. The media could have made me, could make any pitcher into a Cy Young pitcher by just coverage.
Yeah. did you prefer the overly nice reporter to a genuine asshole, or did you just like a guy who was completely impartial and had no rooting interest?
I preferred the guy that was a real dude, like a real guy. I prefer, and I have friends that are in the media and stuff like that, and they're still my friends because they were real. They didn't give me some fake facade all the time, like I didn't feel like, they were out to get me all the time, and they were genuine friends. Now it takes me a while to trust people and stuff like that. So they had to deal with me being an a-hole all the time to them. But then once I let them in, we're good friends. Like we're still good friends. So I have plenty of them there that are good friends of mine that are out, and I made good friendships. So I was always, I never trusted anybody. Because the first person that you trust, that once the one person burns you, then you're like, I'm out. I don't even want to talk to that guy no more. I really just want to kick his ass. But the friends that actually got to know me as a person, and I got to know them as a person, some of my good friends still today.
Got a couple more questions before I let you go. Looking at the Hall of Fame voting, my biggest issue right now is, these, that they're not letting, I'm not going to say it's right or wrong that they're not letting steroid users in or suspected steroid users in, but
right.
I do think it's wrong for these media members who cast off the writer who reported that Mark McGwire had Andro in his locker. And I know it's a big media, it's frowned upon to report what's in a player's locker, but for them to cast off him like a leper for that and then not vote for steroid users or suspected steroid users, I feel like that's very hypocritical on their part. Do you agree with that?
Well, for me, it's that when these reporters are in the clubhouse before the game, before BP, before the game, and after the game, so they're around us all the time. They pretty much know when we take a crap or not, And I think that's wrong than anything, because they're like all up in your business. You can't even sit in your locker and be yourself because they might be jotting some stuff down to saying that, oh, I saw Brett Meyer do this, or I saw so-and-so do this, or whatever. I think that's wrong. Whether it come down to steroids or playing or being in the Hall of Fame and stuff like that, I think that, you know what, I firmly believe that, yes, they might have taken the stuff, but in my opinion, they still had to hit the ball and they still had to throw the ball. And steroids does not help you hit the ball or throw the ball. It might help you recover faster. It might help you get stronger, but at the same time, it does not help your eye-hand coordination to make you hit the ball. You still have to hit the ball. You still have to be good enough to hit the ball. You still have to be good enough to throw the ball on the black to get these guys out. That's my opinion of it, but, I don't think people look at it that way. I think they look at it, they cheated or whatever it is, and they think no, you cheated, you shouldn't be in there.
I honestly, is it fair that, some guys were clean and some guys weren't, and it was an uneven playing field for some? Yes. And I don't think everybody was doing it, but I also don't feel like, I really, as a person, I can't blame a guy for, it
goes down to the old thing. I know what you're going at. Well, it goes down to the old thing. Everybody's doing it.
Well, and my thing is say you're from the Dominican Republic, and it's the difference between you making, $400,000 and being able to just support yourself, or making $20 million over your career, and you can, support a village for the rest of your life and be a legend in the Dominican Republic. Why wouldn't you do something like that? I think. Right. Well, I can't blame the guys there.
Well, at the time when these guys got caught and everything like that, or did it, or whatever they were doing, it wasn't illegal.
Yeah.
to do it in Major League Baseball. It wasn't illegal, but they made a big deal out about it because they got caught when they started doing this Mitchell report thing, and it wasn't illegal then. So how can you, if everybody was doing it back then and some of the guys that said they weren't doing it or whatever like that, you know what? Some of them might be lying, just saying I didn't do it, you know, but they could just be, you know, totally BSing and just saying, yeah, I was clean my whole career. But let's come on, man. Back in the 90s, a lot of people were doing steroids, man. A lot of them. And, you know, I still firmly believe that if it wasn't caught, and that's why they're doing it now, where people are doing the steroids, blah, 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 and this and that, you know, that I firmly believe that they still had to hit the ball and they still had to pitch the ball. It didn't matter. They made baseballs wound tighter. Major League Baseball winds baseballs tighter. They make the wood harder. They do everything so that they can get fans and stuff like that. Same with like NFL. They do everything because it's about the money. That's what it's about. Unfortunately, these guys, when Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire were hitting those home runs, it brought baseball back after the strike and all that other stuff. It made baseball fun again for everybody. And Major League Baseball is making those balls wound tighter because they're looking about the money.
When I think, you know, I said this before, I think that, you know, a lot of people want to say Cal Ripken saved baseball with his, you know, breaking the record. I disagree. I think it was the Sosa McGwire home run chase. And, I mean.
But let me ask you this, though.
But you know damn well that.
Let me ask you this, though. Why did that become the iconic moment to bring baseball back to you? And I'll tell you why. It's because the media made that moment bigger than Cal Ripken's thing. The media makes everything in every sport bigger than it is. They're the reason why all these players get paid astronomical amount of money. They're the reason the top-notch players, Sports Center, ESPN, everybody, all these people that cover sports, MLB Network, they make these players out to be something that they might not be. And then when they have a bad season, they don't even talk about them, you know, or they don't even bring it up. When Clayton Kershaw has a bad start, you don't hear about it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're building him up to be something that he is. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a badass. Don't get me wrong. But they're building him up to be something that he's not a superhero, but that's what the media portrays him as. He's just probably an average dude that goes out there and gets his job done day in and day out.
Well,
but they build him up to be this huge, huge superstar, and that's how it all starts.
I don't know if you're going to want to answer this question, but who do you think the fakest tough guy was in Major League Baseball when you were playing? I don't know, honestly. Tough guy.
I don't know, honestly. I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I'm an old school baseball player. I prided myself on playing the old school way, like the Pete Roses and stuff like that. Like I went out there, I wanted to get dirty with the rest of them, and I busted my ass every single day that I went out there to try to be the best that I could be. And you know what? It just didn't work all the time. I didn't have that Pete Rose ability or that King Griffey Jr. ability, stuff like that. It just came natural. I had to bust my tail to try to be the best that I could be. And I was the dirt baller. I still am. I still try to teach my travel baseball team that way. You know, I will take mentality over talent any day in a player. I will take mentality over talent any day in a player. And because talent, you can have the most talent in the world, but you got the wrong mentality, guess what? You ain't going to make it. I don't care.
Well,
I mean,
Brett,
that's my personal opinion, my professional opinion. So.
Well, Brett, before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody, again, I appreciate your time, taking time out of the studio.
Yeah,
do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, your music?
Yeah, you can go to, it's Twitter's at Backwoods Rebel 39, and you can check me out there. I'm on Facebook under Brett Myers or Brett Myers Music, Instagram, Backwoods Rebel 39. You can find my music on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, anywhere it's sold digitally. It's on YouTube. You just type it in, it should come up. So hopefully everybody check the music out and have a good listen to it, and don't just think I'm some baseball player trying to make music and stuff like that. Actually give it a shot and listen to it. And honestly, I think they're going to end up liking it.
Well, Brett, I loved Beercation, the song Beercation.
Thank you.
I thought that was a great song. I will definitely put out some tweets, get some listens your way. And again, I truly appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back here with Josh Peterson here on the Bob Sullivan Show on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Different time zones, baby. scooby-doo. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. I never known nobody like you. Now I know I'm the neighbor. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Ooh, baby, you're an enigma.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. I'm joined here by Josh Peterson of Sportsmanlike Conduct on 1620 The Zone in Omaha. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Living here in Omaha, I listen to a lot of different shows. The one thing that I do like, or that I don't like, is that we don't get any radio wars. I haven't seen any wars between 220 and 590 yet. I'd like to see some wars.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we were actually discussing this on the show either yesterday or a couple days ago on a Sportsmanlike Conduct. The media culture in Omaha is certainly different than it is in other cities. The ratings just came out across the country for radio stations to see how they did in the fall. And, reading some of the articles, I'm always fascinated by television ratings, by radio ratings, and you read the articles about other cities, and it is just all-out blood warfare, it seems, at times. They hate each other. They can't – I'm just speaking myself. I really don't have a relationship with any of the guys over at 590. They're one of their former producers, who's now in Grand Rapids. I was friends with him, but it's obviously we're competing against each other, and we're trying to get as many listeners as we can to listen to our show. But at the same time, we all went to journalism school. We all have loans to pay. We all had internships that didn't pay us anything, or very little. So I think there's maybe a camaraderie that is certainly there. But yeah, I agree. There's a Philly sports talk host that I follow on Twitter, and you see some of the things that are tweeted at him and some of the things that he says about, the other stations or the other hosts. It's much different than it is in Omaha, that's for sure.
Yeah, you look at like
ESPN with like Levitar, going after people on his own network. You look at, I mean, it's more so national guys going after each other. But even you look at like even like a Boston, a local market like that, it just seems like those guys like Dennis and Callahan just hate everybody. There's not a single person they don't hate, and it's funny to me just hearing like every market people hate each other. I'm just waiting for it to explode where there's almost an Anchorman type of thing where there's a radio station war.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, the part of the thing is that I certainly think lends itself to that in other cities is that it's not just a professional hate, but perhaps an actual like personal dislike of people on the other stations. Like I said, I don't even know the guys here in Omaha. I haven't ever had a chance to meet them, so I certainly have no ill will towards them. Once again, I hope that we get more listeners than they do, but that they put on a fine show. But my goal is just to put the best show I can out each and every day, and to have the most listeners in the process. It's what's interesting is that there are, Lincoln it's obviously a different market. They do things differently. But in a way, it sometimes feels like there is an Omaha-Lincoln rivalry in how we talk about Nebraska sports, most notably Nebraska football. And I won't name any names, but there are certainly people there that I dislike. And whereas in Omaha, I like the guys at our station and I root for us, and I really don't root for anyone else.
It's funny you bring that up. Yeah, the fandom in the state of Nebraska has really changed over the past 15 years, really since Creighton has put in a year in, year out good product, on the basketball court. And I wouldn't really say that, there's some diehard Nebraska fans, but for the most part for basketball, they're more so rooting against Creighton than they are rooting for their own team, which I find odd. And then there's just such a bitterness towards Creighton fans that root for Nebraska or for Nebraska football, when it's like, okay, well, if you live in Nebraska, who else are you supposed to root for football-wise? Am I supposed to go root for North Carolina in football? I have no connection to North Carolina football. Like, it's just, the whole dynamic has changed over the last 15 years because of Creighton being good.
Yeah, it is interesting, and obviously being in Omaha, we're in the hub of the conversation of Jay Skurs and all of that type of the mindset really of how you should and how you shouldn't root for a team. I've kind of come down on it like this. If you support Nebraska football, I don't know if you have to outright support Nebraska basketball, but it is odd to me when somebody roots for Nebraska football and then the winter rolls around and they root for Creighton basketball, but that they talk trash and they root against Nebraska basketball. If you want to root for Nebraska and Creighton, that's fine. I do think it's got harder the last couple of years with Creighton moving to the Big East. Nebraska and Creighton are going after a lot of the same recruits now, and so they're going after a certain type of player, and both of them are doing so. And Nebraska's won some battles, Creighton has won some battles. They obviously go against each other on the court, and so it is odd to me that you would root for a university in one sport. And then it's not that you root for another university in a different sport, because, I did that growing up. I'm a North Carolina basketball fan because they're good at basketball and I want someone to root for in the spring or in the winter and then the early spring. But the problem that I have is that when people root for, let's say, the Nebraska football team, and then they root against Nebraska basketball, they want them to fail. When really, I know that football and basketball are completely separate things, but in a way they are tied to each other to some degree, beyond just the name of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. They are tied to each other in some degree. So that's the problem that I have had with fans, but I know that there are some who disagree with me and they say, it's my right as a fan. I'm going to do whatever I want, and that's what they choose to do.
It's also, the obsession over how, it's really become, in the Twitter era, the obsession over how people root for stuff has just become blown way out of proportion. Like, there's far more fair weather fans now being called out than there ever was, back before Twitter. It's just, I guess it's easier to call those people out, but I honestly, the older I've gotten, the less I care. As far as it's like, okay, well, if you want to root for Kansas basketball and Nebraska football, I don't really care. It's just, just let everybody kind of do their own thing.
Yeah, it really, I mean, in a way you're right, because, hey, your fandom doesn't really affect my fandom. It's just the rooting against a program when you support another program is the one thing that's just like, all right, that's not helping anyone. I think it's different when you're in a pro city and you root for, the teams. You're not, if you live in Chicago, if you live in Boston, you're not obligated to root for all 4 of the teams or all 5 of the teams, whatever it is. You're not obligated to do so. That doesn't, and I guess you can root against them because they're not all tied together like they are at a university like Nebraska or a university like Creighton or at Kansas or North Carolina. Those are all inherently under the same roof, under the same umbrella. Whereas in big cities and professional cities, they have the same name. They have Boston in their name. They have Chicago in their name. They have Los Angeles in their name. But they're owned and run by different people and organizations. They're entirely different entities.
Do you, looking at Nebraska basketball right now, Tim Miles, I think he's built, he bought himself some time getting to the NCAA tournament his first year. Some turnover in the, as far as roster goes this year has led to kind of, last year wasn't great. This year, you're looking at a roster that's kind of been overturned a little bit. How much time do you think he has with Nebraska?
That's such a fascinating question because, I thought that they certainly played above their means in year one. I thought that they had a really good run in year one, winning one game in the Big Ten tournament. I believe they beat Purdue. And they ultimately bowed out in the next round, but they had a solid start to the foundation. Obviously, year two, they end up they win a lot of games in about a month span. They make a run to the NCAA tournament, and they just kind of blow the expectations through the roof. We know what's happened to them the last season and a half, really struggling last year with the expectations of being a top 25 team in the preseason. They lose some poor games, including a loss at home against Creighton, and that just bled into the conference season, and that continued all the way into this season. I certainly am not one, and I've said this on our show, I'm certainly not one to say, all right, it's time for Miles to go. But I am waiting to see that improvement. I am waiting to see them get better because, in a way, their run, it was a month. It was only a month's time. They didn't put together a good season in 2013, 2014. They put together a good month. They got some big wins, and yet, if you look at that season as a whole, they had some bad losses in there. Obviously, they got, the doors blown off of them in the first few minutes against Creighton. They were down 38-8. They lost on the road to a very poor Penn State team, and Penn State is usually a bad basketball team. They lost to them in just an awful game, and a couple days later, Debrell Biggs was off the team, and that was kind of when their run started. But that's still a terrible loss. Their loss in the Big Ten tournament, they were up by almost 20 points against Ohio State, and they ultimately lose that game. And then they were really on the bubble, and it was wondering, all right, what's going to happen with them going into the tournament? And then we know what happened to them in the tournament against Baylor. And they did not play well. They did not show up. Like I said, I'm not one to say it's time to get rid of Miles, but I am waiting to see progress. I do want to see progress that goes beyond just a month of really good basketball because they had that. They had a month. But outside of that and outside of the first year, there's not a lot to hang your hat on, I think, excuse me, if you're a Nebraska fan, outside of improved PR, better recruiting, and a lot of pictures and smiles and fun tweets. Outside of that, I need to see it on the court. It was fun. It was kitsch at first. Now it's time for them to prove it on the court. They've gotten some nice wins lately. Let's see if that can continue. They have some big games coming up, starting with Michigan State. 3 out of their next 4 opponents will be in the top 25, including a couple of them that currently sit in the top 10. And so let's see what happens when that begins.
Are you surprised that there's still Doc Sadler supporters?
Are there still Doc Sadler supporters? I haven't seen any of those. I didn't know those still existed.
I'm surprisingly, I've seen a few where they think I've seen a few people think that he's a better coach than Miles.
Yeah, I would disagree there. I think Miles has had his problems, but he still had more success than Doc Sadler ever did. He absolutely has. I don't think that anyone can argue the amount of success. And even though I just said, it took place in about a month, that still was more success in a month than Doc Sadler ever had. Yeah, I just like with Bo Levers, it stuns me that type of person would still exist. That there would still be Doc Sadler supporters. I haven't heard from any of those on my show, thankfully.
Yeah, it's sad to see, but they still exist, surprisingly. But before we get into Creighton basketball, I do want to bring up the Lawrence Phillips thing. I'm of the position of, yes, it's a very sad story. He got a lot of chances, but, if he wasn't, I know because he's an athlete, we have to talk about it. Do you think there would be this kind of care about with a guy with this rap sheet if he wasn't an athlete?
Oh, no, certainly not. Stuff like this, unfortunately, happens all over the country, and it happens all too often. And it certainly is talked about in Lawrence's case because of the story. It is a phenomenal story. It's a sad story, but it is still a very interesting story. Here's this kid living in a bad area, doesn't know his dad. Mom brings another guy into their life, and he ends up treating his mom and Lawrence like trash. And his mom ultimately decides that she is picking him, and that, Lawrence was heartbroken by that. He leaves, he stays at other friends' houses, he sleeps in cars. I mean, he had a very rough upbringing. And yet there is still that silver lining. There is still the successful story of Lawrence Phillips. And that's what makes it so interesting to me, is that can happen to a lot of people. It does happen, unfortunately, to a lot of people. And ultimately that means nothing for their life. That's it. I mean, they're done. This is their life. This is how they will be the rest of their life. And yet Lawrence had success. He's the best running back that I have ever seen play in college football. And I know a lot of other people echo my sentiments. He went to the same university that a Heisman Trophy running back came through, and Mike Rozier. And yet Lawrence Phillips is often the one that people say is the greatest of all time at Nebraska. So he did have that silver lining. And then, of course, he had all of his struggles at Nebraska, the suspension in 1995 after the assault of an ex-girlfriend, coming back, playing later in the season, playing in the Fiesta Bowl, and then he becomes a top 10 draft pick, gets picked by the St. Louis Rams in the first round, and then he has issues. And then he goes and plays in NFL Europe and succeeds, and then he comes back to the NFL and has issues. He was on the field when Steve Young took a sack that led to a concussion that ended his career. He was the guy who missed the block. I mean, it's just a fascinating story just in itself of who he was as an athlete. And then, there's the stuff afterwards with chasing down teenagers with his car after, a touch football game or whatever it was. And so, yeah, if this is a normal guy, no, it's certainly not talked about. But it's a tale of tragedy because it's a talented athlete. Perhaps the most talented athlete that has ever stepped foot on Nebraska's campus, which is saying a lot. The most talented athlete that was playing on the team in the 90s, which once again is saying a lot. And so, no, if he is just an average guy who is from California, he makes mistakes, he does things, and ultimately takes his life in prison, as he talked about, absolutely not. But I hope that something good can come from this because of the high-profile nature that is Lawrence Phillips. So we'll see. I mean, that's not for years, I don't think, to come down the road. If anything positive is going to happen, I don't think that that's going to happen overnight. But I just hope that something can happen, and we can. I know that the world is never going to be 100% great, but it's instances like this where I just hope that things can improve at least just a little bit.
I guess, like, when his teammates, kind of say, like, okay, well, he's kind of a gentle giant. We love Lawrence, this, that, and I get that. One thing, it's just weird to me with how when he, we have to come to an understanding of his, that I've heard a lot of, well, we need to understand what he was going through. Well, why didn't Michael Vick get that? Like, we have to understand where Michael Vick was coming from when he did the dog fighting. Why didn't we have to understand where Ray Rice was coming from when he, why? There's a lot of picking and choosing where we're going to find understanding from athletes when they make mistakes. And I'm not a big fan.
I think, sorry to interrupt you, I think in a way it's a need to figure out what was happening, because I've said it numerous times since Lawrence's passing. I don't understand. I grew up, I'm a white kid from Omaha. I've lived in a few other places. I lived in Oklahoma for a spell. I lived in Michigan for a spell. I grew up in North Omaha, which, at my high school, I was in the minority at Omaha North High School. But yet I don't know what he was going through. I had a home with two brothers and two parents that are still together, going on now 25 plus years of marriage. Now 30 years of marriage almost this summer. They'll be married for 30 years. I don't understand that. And so in a way, for me at least, it's hard to just judge and say, all right, well, that guy, is this or that because I've never been put in those situations before, and I hope to never be put in situations like that. Because I wouldn't react very well to them, but it's like the nature versus nurture conversation. He had neither. He had neither nature nor nurture, and so that's not. I'm not trying to make an excuse for the guy, but he did not have, the best deck of cards handed to him to start off in life. He didn't have, a jump start in life. And once again, not making excuses, but if I grew up the same way, who's to say that I don't do, some of the same things that Lawrence did throughout his life? You just can't know, I guess.
Right. Well, on to Creighton basketball. This team coming off a loss to Providence, a bad loss to Providence, 50-49, horrible game to watch. What do you take away from this game? What have you taken away so far from Creighton early on in Big East?
It's funny because before their game against Providence, I was saying, well, the one thing you can really rely on with Creighton is their offense. And then obviously they have just a horrific offensive performance in that loss to Providence, losing 50-48. I think that they've gotten off to a fine start. I think a win over Providence would have been just ginormous for them because they lose, obviously, to Villanova, and Villanova's a really good basketball team. But I thought that they looked good against St. John's. They looked good against Georgetown. They blew the doors off of Seton Hall, and so I'm kind of waiting for them to just, get a victory over a team where it says, all right, Creighton is legit. Creighton is here because they lost early in the season to Indiana. They got killed in that game. But they played well. Even they lost by 13 to Oklahoma. They played well in that game. And so they're going to have opportunities. Butler comes to Omaha, next weekend. They come to Omaha on January 23rd. That's not that far away. And so that's only a few days away. They go to Georgetown. They host Seton Hall. And then they go to Villanova again on that first Wednesday in February. They're going to have opportunities because I think the Big East is better this year. I think that overall the conference is stronger. I think there are some really good teams in the conference, and they will be stretched to the limit because if you look at the back half of their schedule against ranked opponents, and right now they have 6 ranked opponents on their schedule in the back half of the season. 2 of those are at home. Only 2 of those are at home. 4 of the games against ranked opponents at Villanova, at Butler, and then at Providence, at Xavier to end the season on March the 2nd and March the 5th. They got to take care of business certainly at home, and they have to take care of business certainly against those unranked foes. But, man, they got to get some victories over those ranked teams if they're going to get anywhere near the NCAA tournament. I think that the talent is better this year. I still think it needs to be better than it is right now. But compared to last year, it's much better overall, I think. Maurice Watson, Kyrie Thomas, Cole Huff, I think that this is a better unit than it was a year ago. But they still need to get better if they're going to, really make some headway in the Big East moving forward.
what's the one thing that you're most worried about going into games, at a Butler, at a Xavier, at a Villanova? Do you think it's just, what is the thing that most concerns you about road games like that?
When Creighton goes on the road, I really think it just comes down to a mindset. Especially against these ranked teams, when now on the season, in games versus ranked opponents that were ranked at the time, they're 0 for 4. They lost to Indiana, who was 14th in the country at that time in the season. That was obviously really early in the season when they lost to the Indiana Hoosiers. And then looking at the rest of their schedule, Oklahoma was 3rd at the time, Villanova 16 at the time, Providence most recently 12 at the time. So they've lost to good teams. Villanova currently sitting 6th in the country. Oklahoma up there at 2nd, Providence at 12th still. I mean they're losing to good teams. Indiana now is outside of the top 25, but they're losing to good teams. But they got to get a victory against one of these teams to get the ball rolling moving forward, just because they have so many of them on their schedule this year. So I really think it comes down to mindset. They played fine defense against Providence, though I wonder just how much of that was both of those teams being inept offensively that night. I do want to see their defense improve, though. I want to see them able to make some big stops against some of these opponents moving forward. But it once again, it's about that mindset. I just want to see how they show up, how they look, how they're playing. Beyond just scoring baskets or making stops. I just want to see a swagger to them, I guess you could say. And with 4 losses against ranked teams, this season, and 2 of them on the road, 2 of them at home, there is still room for improvement in the final couple months of the season.
On that note, let's get into Making a Murderer. Now, this is going to be a giant spoiler alert because we've both seen it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't seen it, turn it off, or you're just not going to see it at this point, so too bad. But, okay, with the Making a Murderer, the first episode was kind of, all right, whatever. And then it just kept building on itself and building on itself. Is this one of the best documentaries you've ever seen?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that because I've been trying to think of the best documentary I've seen. I was really trying to do this as I watched the show as it unfolded. I think this is the best documentary, and there are some that I know I need to watch that I have not ever gotten around to, and I plan on getting around to because the medium is so interesting to me. I love documentaries when they're done right, and this one obviously was done right. I agree with you too on your take on the first episode because I haven't really seen that said by a lot of people. I went into it kind of having an idea on what it was. Okay, here's the story about this guy who went to prison for raping a woman. He did not rape her. He was in jail for almost 20 years. He gets let out, and then he gets arrested for the murder of someone. So I knew that going in. And so watching the first episode as it unfolded, I thought it was slow. I thought, okay, we're getting a lot of this story, but it's like, okay, where is it going to go? I obviously had no idea the twists and the turns that were in store. But, yeah, I thought build was just phenomenal. And the worst part is we're not talking about a TV show like a Breaking Bad or The Wire that are fictional stories. The worst part about this is that it's true. And I know that people want Stephen Avery released, and I personally don't think there was enough evidence there to convict him. The saddest part of this story, though, for me, is Brendan Dassey. I mean, here's a kid who is worried about a project that he has to turn in, and WrestleMania, and all of these things that are trivial to normal life. That just, oh yeah, I got a project due today. Oh, I got to go to 5th period. The girl broke up with me. I mean, we've all been there in high school, and those were his biggest concerns. Not that he was going to be put away in jail for the rest of his life, and that is just so sad that he didn't have the mental capacity to understand, okay, what's actually happening right now, but also that the piece of garbage human beings in Manitowoc County continued and ultimately put him away. They tried and they ultimately succeeded in putting him in prison, with no chance of parole for a long time. It's depressing. It was sad. But yeah, very, very well done.
When I was my issue when I watch shows, like I watch Breaking Bad, all 5 seasons at once. 24 same way, all 8 seasons before Live Another Day came out. But my problem is I go to IMDb and try to find out like who's playing a certain character, and then I see, oh, well, they only appear in 2 episodes. All right, well, they're going to die in the next episode. That was the one thing with this documentary that I resisted the urge to Google anything before I finished it, because I just, I wanted to be surprised by what was going to happen, and I didn't want to have it ruined it anyway. Did you, other than knowing going in, did you resist the urge of Googling anything?
Oh, yeah, and I do that with any show. I watched most of Breaking Bad on TV as it unfolded, so I didn't have that problem there. But if ever I start a show that, is a season or 2 in, I do not Google anything. I don't go to the IMDb page or Wikipedia page for fear of those things you're just talking about, for fear of the spoilers. And I certainly didn't want to get spoiled in this case. And, it's tough at times because it's just like, man, what's happening? And, you had a feeling the whole time that Avery was ultimately going to end up in prison, because pretty much every conversation that he had, in a way he was almost the narrator of the story, and all of that was off screen. All of it, you could tell the sound quality was that of a phone. And so the whole time I'm thinking, okay, I can't imagine that he is going to be proven innocent because this sounds like a phone call. And that's ultimately, what ended up unfolding. And yet the way they got there still, though, the blood thing at the end of episode 4, or the license plates when Colburn just read it right off, and here's the license plate number. Okay, thank you. All of that. The fact that apparently this happened, in the bedroom and there was no blood, and then some of it happened in the garage and there was no blood, and there was no sign of cleaning it, though. There was nothing there that says that they cleaned all this out, and oh look, they hit all this, and they hit the car on the property. It's like they can crush the car. They can hide it under other cars. They have so many cars, and yet they're only going to just put it a couple feet away where someone can walk and find it right away. So many inconsistencies. And you know what? Maybe Stephen Avery did it. He's no saint. He's had issues in his life, and they pointed some of those out, and obviously more have come out since the documentary ended. So there are things about him that it's not like I'd want to hang out with the guy. I wouldn't want, when I have kids, I wouldn't want my kids to spend time with him. The guy has issues, but I don't think there was enough evidence to convict him, and I certainly don't think there was enough evidence to convict Brendan Dassey.
One of the things I found interesting with the investigation is there wasn't more looking into that boyfriend. Like, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, the police did go talk to the ex-boyfriend or the roommate, because they seemed really into finding her early on. And all of the messages getting deleted, and I got to call bullcrap on him guessing her password by saying, oh, well, it must be your sister's birthday. That's how I got into her voicemail. One, do you know your fiance's sister's birthday? If I had a girlfriend or anything like that, I would not know their sister's birthday. I call bullcrap on that he knew that right off the bat and guessed it as a password. No way.
Yeah, I agree, and he is someone that I've looked at, as I thought about the show, and I know I'm going to do a rewatch at some point just because I really want to see if I can, uncover any more details. But that is one person that I don't get the best feeling about, and I know so often in movies and TV, and once again, those are movies and TV, fictionalized stories, that the ex-boyfriend, always, is one of those prime suspects. But man, he just had a lot of weird inconsistencies about him that was just like, oh yeah, you knew the password. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, you were one of the people who had the phone, numbers of the police officers. You were leading the search party. Isn't that interesting? That you were leading the search party and not somebody else. Yeah, he is someone that I have definitely had a watchful eye on, and it's someone that I've thought of a lot since I finished watching the show.
Well, and the one other thing, I get that these that the Dasseys, the Averys, not the brightest bunch of crayons in the box, but I feel like Stephen Avery hiding the CRV or whatever it was in the by a tree with just a couple pieces of wood covering it. I got to think he would have done a better job hiding that than on his own property. That just seemed a little too perfect. The key was a little too perfect. There's just too many things that were a little too perfect for him to be convicted, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Let's pretend. Let's just say Stephen Avery did it. All right. So we start there. He did a phenomenal job of cleaning the garage. He burned these bones down, and just destroyed them. He did a great job at cleaning the bedroom where all of this terribleness unfolded. Okay, so we'll agree on that. So why would he do all that to only hide the car 20 feet away? Why would he do all that and keep the key? Why would he do a lot of really hard work and then the easy stuff he just leaves right out in the open? And that's why I don't buy it. He had this property with tons of cars. I mean, watching it looked like thousands of cars on this property. If he didn't want to crush it, he could have gone in the middle of the lot, moved a couple cars around, buried it underneath another car, and then been good to go. He could have crushed it. He could have done a bunch of different things. He could have crushed the key. He could have burned melted down the key. He could have done a lot of different things with the key. And so you're telling me that he took the precautions and cleaned up this and that and this and that, but the biggest pieces of evidence, the car being on the property and the key, he didn't do. And, oh, yeah, by the way, the key was found by this shady cop on the 8th look through the room because they moved a dresser and it fell behind the dresser. Are you kidding me? Are you? I mean, seriously, that doesn't happen in real life. That's if this was a fictionalized show, and this is ultimately what got someone convicted, we would say this show is terrible. The writing is awful. Why are we even, watching this show still? And yet this was real life, and somebody is in prison for the rest of his life because of it.
Something like this would have led to Sam Waterston going on a drinking binge in Law and Order. Like, if he would have lost a case like this, that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, I was talking to somebody that knows somebody up in Wisconsin, and he said, like, everybody in Wisconsin pretty much in that area thinks he's guilty, thinks Avery's guilty. And then everybody who watches the documentary thinks he's not guilty. There's too many holes in both sides of the story. And now his ex, that Jody, his ex-fiance, claiming she drank rat poison to go to the hospital and get away from him and that he was a psycho. She didn't seem to make it sound like he was a psycho while he was in prison. She could have gotten out at that point if she wanted.
Yeah, agreed. You see stories coming out since then where, a jury member says that he regrets, saying that he was guilty, and there was the jury member inside of the documentary who said that, when they initially went in, it was 7 innocent, 3 guilty, 2 undecided, and that there were these people who were just steadfast in holding on to their grudges against him. Look, once again, he's not a saint. He had issues, but you go back to the wrongful conviction of the rape that people still won't apologize for, and they still say, yeah, well, he did that. We obviously know his character. When it was proven that he literally did not do that. He was nowhere near the incident as it unfolded. Just a lot of grudges, a lot of small-town petty grudges. And, the worst thing I think that Stephen Avery did was not getting away from the town. When he got let out, he should have moved on. He should have started a new life elsewhere, because that town was out to get him, especially when there was $1 million lawsuit coming down the pike.
Yeah. Well, Josh, on that note, before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the unsportsmanlike conduct, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Josh Tweederson. A play on my name, Josh, Josh Tweeterson. You can find me there. I tweet about lots of random crap, not just sports, including making a murder. And what's been great about it, real quick, is that people, anytime someone starts the show or gets to a certain point, they tweet at me now because it's like I've become the Making a Murderer guy, and that's been a lot of fun to watch people's reactions. So you can follow me there on Twitter at Josh Tweederson. You can listen to my show every weekday, Monday through Friday. I'm on from 2 to 6 on 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com, also the 1620 The Zone app. John Bishop and I, we talk a lot of Nebraska football. We talk hoops, both Nebraska and Creighton. We talk a lot of NFL. We talk a lot of football in general, and we bounce obviously around the other sports, but we really like talking football. And our show, we have a lot of fun. So you can listen to us Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 Central on Unsportsmanlike Conduct. And yeah, I really enjoy my job, and I love interacting with people. I like going on podcasts like this. So, feel free to tweet at me if you have any opinions. I usually respond. I don't always respond, but I like discussion. I like going back and forth with people, sometimes in a positive way, sometimes in a negative way. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter, and we can talk about random stuff.
Did you kiss Bishop on Kiss a Ginger Dick?
What was that? Did I kiss him?
Did you kiss John Bishop on Kiss a Ginger Dick?
I would have to get paid the settlement that Stephen Avery was going to receive. I mean, it'd have to be in the $40 million range to even consider doing something like that. And even then, it probably wouldn't be in a Powerball amount. Maybe over $1 billion. Maybe that would be the only way I would do so.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I appreciate you coming on. Honored to talk to you. I always have enjoyed.
That'll do it for this edition of the Bob Sullivan Show. You can catch Bob and friends talking sports with you as they happen every Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time at latenightsportsradio.com. And if you catch this on demand, you can catch it on Spreaker.com through the Spreaker app for a variety of systems, and also at iTunes. Have a great week, everyone.